President Biden says he has no plans to change any direction in the next 2 years in office. Watch.
75% of voters say the country is heading into the wrong direction, despite the results of last night. What in the next 2 years do you intend to do differently to change people's opinion of the direction of the country?
Nothing, because they're just finding out what we're doing. The more they know about what we're doing, the more support there is.
There you go. Inflation remains near 40-year highs. The October Consumer Price Index is out in the next hour, about less than an hour away. Economists are expecting an increase of 0.6% month over month, and year over year an increase of 8%. Joining me right now is Texas Congressman, House Ways and Means Committee ranking member Kevin Brady. Congressman, it's good to see you. Thanks so much for being here.
Good to see you, Maria.
So what do you make of that? President Biden's not going to change a thing. He's going to continue doing what he's doing because he says that the American people don't really understand what he's doing, and the more they understand it, they'll support him.
Yeah, well, it's a real gut punch, I think, to American voters if they wake up this morning hearing that, because obviously, while the president insists inflation is zero, what we know is the core inflation was the highest of the Biden presidency last month. Healthcare, housing, and rents had the highest increases last year ever recorded. And so a lot of Americans today in this cruel economy of Joe Biden's, look, they're skipping meals, they're delaying retirement, they're digging into savings, they're looking for extra work to try to figure out a way to try to survive in Joe Biden's economy. And so, look, I think the president is severely disconnected from the real world. And that's why I think voters put those checks and balances on this presidency by electing what will be a Republican majority in the House. Yeah,
but Congressman Dagan and I have been talking about the fact that all the money from the COVID relief package has not been appropriated yet. Dagan's been bringing up all these checks that states are sending out, continuing to send out. Now, we know that the root cause of the spiking inflation is the COVID relief package, $1.9 trillion. How much of that has been appropriated? How much is still out there? Because that's going to tell us whether or not inflation has peaked, right?
Yeah, I think that'll be one of the drivers. Obviously, the workforce shortage, which continues to be very severe, is going to continue to drive inflation for a long time at a very high level as well. But you're right about American people really don't know where that money got spent. And I know in the Ways and Means Committee, we will finally pull back the curtain on the Biden administration. But what we believe is the greatest theft of American tax dollars in U.S. history in unemployment fraud. We are seeing it, too, in some other of those programs, such as the child tax credit. So you're going to see finally, I think, some balance to what this government did in COVID relief. And again, not only was it driving inflation, it was a monumental waste in fraud of tax dollars.
Congressman, it is Dagan McDowell. How much of that money how much of that money, whether it's appropriated, but how much of it is unspent? Do you have any sense of how much more of just that $2 trillion relief package is just sitting there? And Maria mentioned the checks. Looking at, say, California, Gavin Newsom was taking that money that the state got from the $2 trillion COVID relief and sending checks to people last month as inflation relief. Again, the upside-down idiocy of that. But how much is still sitting on the sidelines waiting to be spent and is potentially inflationary?
Yeah, Dagan, I don't know at the federal level. What I think you are seeing, and thank you for raising that, is, states got just a windfall, 2 years of a bailout from President Biden. They're using those funds to do, I think, in some cases, politically motivated stimulus checks to try to keep their jobs. And it came, as you know, close to the election as well. Those will run through the rest of this year for most of those states. So you're going to see some of that inflationary pressure continue.
It's interesting to see the Republicans working with Joe Biden, and he says he's not going to change anything, and he says good luck investigating Hunter now with a slimmer majority. Congressman Brady, come on, you say House and Ways and Means Republicans have laid the groundwork for launching an onslaught of investigations into this administration's abuse of power. This morning we see more of that. He wants to investigate Elon Musk. Tell us about your plans to hold them accountable for all of this.
Yeah, so our focus is going to be on pulling the curtain back, giving the public really the right to know how their tax dollars and how their government works. And so you'll see not only the unemployment fraud being a focus, but the IRS, the record backlog that has hurt so many Americans on their tax returns, the destruction of 30 million tax returns from last year. Obviously the leaks of private tax returns as well. And then the IRS continues how they use that money for the IRS agents, and they're still pursuing a bank surveillance scheme, frankly, on Americans. So you're going to see a lot of Republican work on issues that affect families, especially middle-class families, directly. You'll see also a focus on the president's illegal expansion of Obamacare, their global tax surrender, and some other major issues that, frankly, has never been covered or revealed with Democrats leading the House. I think the public will finally get to see how their government is working.
That's unbelievable. So, in other words, the surveillance of our bank accounts, they want to know every transaction above $600. Is that what they want to do?
They do, and they haven't given up on that. I know they switched. Sort of Plan B was adding the 87,000 new IRS agents, but Plan A all along has been to continue to surveil people's transactions. You see it already in the gig economy. Americans can tell you this, but they're going to continue to pursue it, especially if there's a Democrat Senate and our job in the House. And I think the American taxpayers gave us the power to block and be a checks and balance on that whole presidential approach.
Yeah, and yet the way they talk as if the Republicans are doing that. Like the other day, that's what Obama said, right? Reporters will go to jail. I mean, well, reporters have been in jail under Democrat leadership. Congressman, we're watching it all. We're going to keep a spotlight on it. We so appreciate your time. Thank you, sir.
Yes, ma'am.
Kevin Brady joining us.